You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640. Welcome to Mo on the Movies.
Oh, Red.
Don't be ridiculous, darling. It's Mo on the Movies.
Kiss me.
Not a chance.
KFI, Mr. Mo Kelly. We're live everywhere in the iHeartRadio app, and we often talk about movies, but also with respect to their importance on the economy, their importance as far as traditional movie theaters, brick and mortar movie theaters. And I've always made the point that you should root for movies to do well. Movies doing well helps the overall economy, since we've been talking about the economy as of late as to whether we're headed towards a recession. And the economy goes, I should say, entertainment goes as the economy goes. As people have more discretionary income, they will spend it on entertainment. Meaning, if entertainment is doing well, that's usually a sign of the economy also doing well, or people's confidence in the economy. A quick way to look at that is whether people are going to the movies. Right now, people are kind of going to the movies, but also there are fewer movies for them to go to. And the quality of the movies, especially during the winter months, has always been lesser. You may not have wanted to see Anthony Mackie as Captain America, but Captain America, that movie, the longer it stays in theaters and the better it does, means that your local movie theater can pay its employees for a few more weeks or a few more months. And if you look at Captain America, Brave New World, it's been in theaters for about 5 weeks. It's coming up on 400 million. That's less than what they were hoping for, but it's not a bad return.
It actually beats out the very first Captain America movie. It far surpassed First Avenger. And is doing good for Marvel, but in an age where films, because of what Disney did with introducing the billion-dollar box office smash, now theaters are needing that to stay alive, when arguably, if there were just more good films released, theaters could be packed out, but theaters are only going to be packed out on the weekend. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, what's happening in those theaters?
And there's something else. You have movies now which historically would have ended up in movie theaters are now just going to streaming. For example, even though we didn't like it, the whole Electric State movie by the Russo brothers, 10 years ago, that would have been in theaters. It might have done horribly, but it still would have been a big box office movie for people to see. It would have been something else for people to actually go to the movies to, and you wouldn't have had the option of streaming. But now with the option of streaming, you have some what we call good B movies, which will end up on streaming, would have had never any chance of being in a theater, but still movie studios are looking at streaming as an alternative for the movies that they're not real confident about, which they don't want to risk having to share money with theaters for a movie they may not even get their money back on. So they'd rather sell it to Amazon. They'd rather sell it to Netflix and be able to get some of the money back in that regard.
You're making me really nostalgic. Try to imagine the joy Siskel and Ebert would have had just dropping an absolute deuce from 10,000 feet onto the Electric State.
Oh, it would have been murdered. It would have been savaged by critics.
They would have gotten medieval on it.
But the difference is it still would have been in theaters for the benefit of theaters to decide, and it probably would have lasted in theaters maybe 4 or 5 weeks. Yes, movie studios would have still split the money with it, but there's no way Netflix is going to be able to make its money back on that. There's no way. But the movie studio, which sold it to Netflix, they probably got a pretty penny for it.
Yeah. And looking on the horizon, there are not a lot of big hits coming out.
Not until summer.
Not until the summer. And summer is now happening way, still May, we get a little something, but it's still way off into the future before we get something that's going to really drive people back to theaters. So the question is, what can theaters do? If we're not having blockbusters, if we're having films that aren't being supported resoundingly by audiences, what can theaters do to survive? Because we're coming up on the summer and there isn't a string of hit movies coming out across the summer. There are a handful of movies that are coming out this summer that we all want to see.
Yeah.
Period.
And spread out. This is the middle of March. We know February was not a great month for movie theaters. We know March has not been. Mickey 17 has underperformed. It's still under 100 million. And it's in its second week, and it needs to pull in at least 118 million to possibly turn a profit. The Day the Earth Blew Up, a Looney Tunes movie, first week, did 3 million. Black Bag did 7 million its first week. The Last Supper, didn't know that was coming out, did 2.7 million. That's not going to get people in theaters. It's not. Even if you want to see the movie, you can wait 2-3 weeks and catch it on streaming or some other service, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
I'm trying to think of the next movie I'm looking forward to is in April, The Accountant 2. That's something I really do want to see the movie because I love the first one. I'll go to the theater for that, but I'm going now to the theater every other month.
But
every third month,
go to a theater to see that one?
That's what I'm saying. I don't need to. I may want to, but that's not enough to help a business stay in business. That's not going to help a movie theater thrive because I don't know how much of a mainstream hit that's going to be. One, it's our movie, so there are fewer showings. It's violent, and it's a more limited, narrow audience that it's targeting.
Yeah, I think that's what may be the biggest thing against that one. I mean, something like Sinners, as much as I want to see this and want to see it in theaters, I love the trailer. I love everything about it. You know, vampires,
that's a vampire movie.
Michael B. Jordan and Ryan Coogler, they get together and do great movies. But I say to myself, do I want to be in a theater watching it?
Do you have to be? And I don't think I have to be. It's not one of those appointment destination movies that I say, oh, got to be there first weekend, and maybe see it multiple times. There are no movies like that until maybe the Thunderbolts?
May 2nd, yeah.
May 2nd. Okay, and that's the beginning of the summer movie season. And if I happen to own a movie theater, brick and mortar, I'm thinking like, how the hell am I going to keep my doors open at least 5 days a week? I'm not talking about 7, just like Tuesday through Sunday.
You mentioned Mickey 17. That opened on the 7th this month. It's going to be available for streaming on the 25th in a few days.
See, that's the big thing right there. Streaming is right around the corner nowadays with it. And what I honestly think it may end up happening is you're going to see the Netflixes and all of those companies, the streaming companies, buy out movie theaters and start to just run the bigger stuff that they have. Because first off, you need to have them play theatrically so that they can be Oscar competitive. So why not just buy out your own theaters and start just screening all of the stuff that you have in your catalog?
Well, I think there were laws against that, but that might be relaxed now. I don't know what the latest is on that.
The theater industry was dying after the pandemic. This may be the only thing that keeps it afloat.
Maybe, but it's almost science fiction to think back to the time when a theater would play a movie for like a year solid, like Thunderball played 24 hours in 1965 for a year.
The Karate Kid was in theaters 6 months.
Yeah.
6 months.
That doesn't exist anymore.
You're lucky if you get 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And if you know, to Sam's point, that a movie's going to hit streaming, 21 days after it's released, you know what? I'm busy this weekend. I can't see it this weekend. I'll just go ahead and wait for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You got Disney Plus charging $20 for you to watch the movie like a week or so after it comes out in the theaters. I'm, as a parent, all I have to say is as a parent.
You don't have to drive. You don't have to wrangle kids. And it's actually going to cost less than trying to pay for 2 or 3 tickets.
Snacks.
Right?
Snacks. That's all I have to say.
That's a bargain. Yeah, it's going to get worse, and I'm not sure it's going to get any better. It's later with Mo Kelly. KFI AM 640, live everywhere in the iHeartRadio app.
You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
But if you have some time, I encourage you to watch the full interview between Stephen Colbert and actor Gary Oldman. It was a special interview, if only because Gary Oldman wasn't even on set. Stephen Colbert went to England to sit down with Gary Oldman, talk about his life, career, slow horses, and some other things. But it was a very revealing conversation because, one, you get to hear Gary Oldman in his natural speaking voice, and it always throws me off because you always hear him with an American accent. And you get to see just some of his natural mannerisms, self-deprecating, unassuming. If you didn't know him or recognize him, he'd just be a guy. But he had some anecdotes about his life and career, which were really interesting. So if you get a chance, check out the full interview. It's easy to find. Stephen Colbert and Gary Oldman. One of my favorite movies is The Professional, and it featured a very young Gary Oldman. Early in his career, he plays a corrupt police lieutenant, and he's trying to hunt down this assassin played by Jean Reno. Long story short, Jean Reno is protecting the daughter of a family who was murdered, and because of Gary Oldman's character, they're chasing Jean Reno throughout the whole movie. There's a scene in it in which Jean Reno takes out this police battalion, half of them, and then I'll say one of his cohorts looks to Gary Oldman and says, what do we do? And Gary Oldman's character says, bring everyone. And he says, everyone? And then he repeats it, yelling, everyone, which became a meme, iconic scene. It's something that everyone basically knows from the movie. And we've talked about it here on the show, but I don't think that anyone knew that it was actually an outtake that Luc Besson, the director, decided to leave in. So listen to this.
I do want to get to Leon the Professional because this has become its own moment in cinema history. This is a meme. People love this. I'd like you to walk me through, after I show it to you, walk me through this take.
Patty, bring me everyone.
What do you mean, everyone? Tell me about that one.
I did a couple of takes. Bring me everyone, everyone. And to make Luc Besson laugh, just as a joke, I went to the sound guys and I said, I'm going to be really, really loud, so, And I did that, and he kept it and put it in the film. That was just an outtake. It was just me having a laugh. And
people love it.
Yeah, and
I love it.
Yeah, and
he walks away, and your eyeballs are still vibrating.
None of my eyes stayed to the spot.
Like you were never looking at him to begin with.
Yeah. Do you know, we were shooting that film only in New York. We had closed down. I forget where it was, but it was like a main artery of somewhere in New York. And we blew up that building. I mean, the explosives that he used with that blast when I opened my hand.
He's holding a grenade pen.
There was a huge crowd watching us film. And at the same time, there was a bank robbery of the bank across the street from where we were filming.
An actual bank?
An actual bank robbery, yeah. And the whole crowd turned and they watched the bank robbery. And the police, and then they turned back and they're watching us filming. I thought it was just, and I wasn't actually in the building. I was back on the corner to watch this explosion because Luke said it's going to be fantastic. It's going to blow right out across the street, and they were setting it all up in this crowd, and then you was like, what the hell? And there's a bank robbery and this thing, and I just thought at the time, oh my God! I mean, God, New Yorkers are fantastic.
I was about to say
didn't even blink.
I love that movie, and I love that man. Now I need to just go back and watch the movie again just to reminisce with all the scenes he was talking about.
Did you see the part of the Colbert interview where he plays clips from assorted movies of Gary Oldman with fart sounds of him as Jackson Lamb?
It is a great, great interview. It is a great interview. You have to see it in its entirety.
Well, and he brings Gary Oldman to tears of laughter, and it's so infectious. I found myself nearly weeping with laughter as well.
Yeah, I really dug seeing his personality, as in Gary Oldman's personality. You always see him as an actor. He seemed very disarmed in this interview, to Colbert's credit. He developed a rapport with Oldman, and it just translates very well.
He's good at that. Usually actors, and I've been on a million of these junkets, they're very on message. And when you can break through that, that's a great victory. And Colbert is a master of doing that. And actually, Kimmel's good at that too.
And that's why they have those jobs. They're good at that because a lot of the job is not only being funny, but being engaging and be able to get something out of these guests that we haven't already heard 1,000 times. Because it's not like they're getting people that no one gets. They're getting the stars, but you have to get something out of them that hasn't already been extracted by someone else. And I'm going to go there real quick, Mark Ronner. If you've seen the movie The Professional.
Oh, yeah.
It's not a movie that could be remade today because it has literally an underage Natalie Portman. And in the movie, it's hinted at that there is some sort of romantic interaction between Natalie Portman's character and Jean Reno.
Well, she has a crush on him, and he's a much older man, and she is a minor, and so it gets pretty uncomfortable. But it never goes there to the point where it's like...
But I thought it was intimated. I thought that it was suggested that it was more than just an innocent crush from her on him. Well, he's oblivious, but
you saw I remember when it first came out here, there was 20 minutes missing from the American cut. It almost didn't get made then.
That's what I thought, Mark. There were two different cuts.
The international cut has an extra 20 minutes on top of it, and there's a few scenes where it's not necessarily playing towards like any kind of intimate connection between the two characters. It's more of the lengths that she had to go to get him to fully commit to helping her. Like, there was some scenes that were like her with a gun about to unalive herself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And those were scenes that even now, but even back then, they would not screen that in America. You can only find that on the international version.
I thought there was another version of the movie.
Oh, it's a classic movie.
Now it makes you want to go find out just to see the differences.
Check the international version. It adds so much weight to it.
Is that the one they call Leon as opposed to The Professional? Okay.
Yes. And when I saw that version, I was hooked. I was like, Natalie Portman should have got an Oscar for that. It was mind-blowing when I first saw that.
Damn it, Leon.
Okay.
Get it.
Yeah, that I know. Now I know what to look for. See, we all learned something new today, except for Sam, who knew everything. Mark, do you look at the movie differently now?
Well, I mean, it was always kind of uncomfortable. As you and I were talking about yesterday, times change, and there were a lot of things that were conventional sort of sitcom scenarios back in the old days that would not fly now, particularly an underage girl throwing herself at a middle-aged male. So you probably wouldn't have that these days, would you?
Well, I think about The Blue Lagoon. That wouldn't be remade today. Pretty Baby, Taxi Driver. There are a lot of movies I think like, no.
Blazing Saddles.
Blazing Saddles, yeah. I mean, there's just a lot of movies for different reasons. We're such a different society now. Our concept of humor and what is acceptable and post-Me Too movement, kids on sets, there's just no way. Not in idea or even execution would those movies be made now.
No. And just to repeat what we were talking about off the air, I watched an old movie with Darren McGavin, and the actress who played, I think, Violet in Willy Wonka, they're both repo agents, and she's a teenager in the movie, just much more explicitly throwing herself at middle-aged Darren McGavin in this movie from the late 70s, to the point where I'm just sitting there watching this thing with my mouth hanging open. McGavin hooks up with Joan Collins, and the teenage girl gets jealous and starts trying even harder to have sex with Darren McGavin. And you'd be thrown in jail if you tried to put that out today. I mean, they don't show anything. You never get to see anything, but just the subject is even more taboo than it used to be.
Mm-hmm. It's Later with Mo Kelly. Let's talk OnlyFans. That's not taboo. We can talk about that and murder when we come back.
You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
And before I tell you about this story, I have to tell you about this note I got on the Mr. Mo Kelly Facebook page. It's really funny how people may perceive me. I don't know what they hear, but sometimes they just hear what they want to hear. I never thought of myself as doing a show which is about morals or my morals. But this is a perfect example of people hear what they want to hear. This comes from America Dwight Halo, and that ought to tell you something right there.
His given name, America?
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, I want to do, I'm not going to read that one. I want to start with Jeff Wassum, Jef, 1F, Wassom. Jeff says, if you're so pissed, as in YOUR, if you're so pissed off that nobody will step up to the plate to run against Bass, as in Karen Bass, then all the means step up to the effing, spelled out, plate, Mo. JFC. You act like you're a know-it-all, you're, YOUR, know-it-all, and so full of yourself of moral values.
Self of moral values. Okay.
And I had to explain to this person, I don't do a show which has anything to do with my morals. I have my views and opinions, and then I rattled off a bunch of things which probably would qualify as not a moral-based show.
Did you also explain to the person punctuation?
Oh, I'll direct it to, I absolutely did.
Yes.
It's my duty to explain the difference between YOU''RE and YOUR.
All these things are important.
And people say, Mo, you're just a grammar Nazi. I know you shouldn't say Nazi in today's world. I'm just saying that's what people call me, grammar Nazi. And I try to explain to them, if you can't handle basic spelling, why is it I'm supposed to listen to you on the much more complex issues? If you didn't pay attention in second grade, don't try to come here and school me on anything.
It really is hard to take someone seriously when they're not fluent in their native language.
And complaining about people not speaking their native language?
And them calling you an idiot.
All of it together like a goulash. Okay. Since this is not a moral show, let's talk about OnlyFans and fetishes and murder. A 31-year-old woman has been charged with murder after a man who paid her to engage in fetish acts died after he'd had a bag on his head secured with duct tape during their encounter in an Escondido home. This is a California story. She recorded the interactions, plural, to use this content for her OnlyFans page. And video showed Michael Dale, 55, same age as me, that's kind of scary, in a secured bag for at least 8 minutes. 8 minutes!
Yes.
She also allegedly glued boots to his feet, allegedly done at his request. Michaela Brashai, I can't pronounce that damn name. Yeah, Michaela now sits in jail without bail after being arrested and charged with murder last month, nearly 2 years after the death. So this is not recent. It took a while to get charges filed on her. The San Bernardino County woman pleaded not guilty in Vista Superior Court. But in a narrative laid out, as far as what happened, the incident allegedly occurred between two consenting adults during what appears to be bondage, discipline, dominance, submission, sadism, and masochism. BDSM to the rest of us. While legal experts say a victim's consent to take part in dangerous acts is not a defense to homicide, it may be a mitigating factor here.
Yeah, and I'm so glad Sam is here because, and I say that because this is something that I had to discuss with and warn my son about, a new trend that was going around young people his age, and that was suffocation sex and bringing someone near to the point of choking or blacking out.
It's called breath play.
Boom. That's the title.
Okay,
Yeah,
Sam, very
that's
quickly.
what it was, yes.
What your field of study is what?
Well, I'm in psychology, but I'm getting my PhD in human sexuality.
Okay.
And this is a big part of it.
Yeah, continue.
It's a part of the BDSM under the umbrella of BDSM. It's breath play. A lot of times, you like autoerotic asphyxiation, the thing that David Carradine.
Yep.
It's apparently the intensity of the climax becomes enhanced, if you are on the verge of death.
Okay. Is there a line between just passing out and death?
Yes, you wake up from passing out.
I mean, but
Damn it. Oh my God. Damn it.
You kind of teed him up for that one.
I did. But I'm saying, is it a thin line? In this practice of BDSM?
Well, no, it's actually a pretty thick line. You should be able to say whatever the word is when you've had enough. And usually that's the thing. What people don't quite understand from the outside looking in is when it comes to like successful couples, some of the best ones are the BDSM relationship couples, because you have to have a really good level of communication with each other so that you avoid having stuff like that happen.
All right. And I'm on the outside looking in, so I'm going to ask the questions while I can.
Have a safe word, tap out, do something.
Yeah, and if this person was in a bag and had, who knows if they were gagged or if they, they may have not been able to express, clearly that they were in actual life distress at that moment.
Instead of duct tape, go with Scotch tape.
Have you ever seen the movie Four Brothers?
Yes.
In there is a scene where one of the brothers takes a cop hostage and he puts a bag over it and he ties the bag on with the belt. And this is relevant to this because most people, according to the scene, always try to go for the belt as opposed to just pulling the bag off, which is easier. And I'm thinking after 6-7 minutes had passed with the bag, most likely this dude is not responding.
He might have his hands restrained. He may have a gag. He may not be able to effectively communicate that he is dying inside of there.
Mm-hmm. And she also could have been under, and so could he have been under the influence of mind-enhancing drugs and things like that, which have been, in the report that I read about it, are part of what's brought into to further enhance sexual climax.
You're not putting a bag over my head, ever. 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 Under any circumstances.
Who is that warning to?
I'm just saying. Whoever might be listening who don't apply to.
Just
that's kind of a lifelong expectation, all right? From my early days as a wee lad to now. No bags overhead.
That's not your bag. I had to. The door was open.
No reason for you to walk through.
I'll see myself out.
Okay. But I will say this. We all like what we like. A common refrain. I don't judge other people for what they like. It just may not be something that I understand. But I know, in an abstract sense, if we were to be aware of what everyone liked, we would probably say, really? Because it's, and you know better than I do, Sam, it's probably a wide spectrum.
Oh, yeah. If it brings you pleasure, it doesn't violate anybody else's boundaries and doesn't cause anybody distress, it's fair game.
And Sam and I used to go to the same place called Porn Star Karaoke at Sardo's.
Yep.
So we've seen some stuff.
Oh, yeah. And I'm still I'm very good friends with a lot of people in the industry still.
Oh, friends. Is that what they call it?
Oh, yeah.
KFI AM 640. We're live everywhere in the iHeartRadio app.
You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
Will Smith is the latest example of someone who has not been canceled. He literally smacked the crap out of someone in the middle of the Oscars on worldwide television and streaming, had a 15-minute Oscar speech after that, had 2 movies that I know of, and now he's getting ready to go out on tour as a recording artist. That, to me, does not sound like you're actually canceled. That says to me, You're just living life.
That's right. Will Smith has just announced he's hitting the road in support of his first full-length album in 20 years, based on a true story. His tour kicks off in June, but here's the bad news. All the summer dates are across the pond. No dates yet here set in the United States. As of yet, Will Smith's new album dropped March 28th.
March 28th, the album drops. He's going on a European tour. It seems like, I mean, with the exception of the Oscars, Will Smith is none the worse. It seems like that he has not been severely inconvenienced. Yeah, he probably lost some money, probably lost some endorsements. But as far as I can see, he's been able to continue with his career. In other words, he's been more busy in his career than Chris Rock has been in his.
True. It's interesting to me because in the same day that Will Smith or this news is dropped about him and carrying on his career, going on tour, and not being canceled, someone who actually wasn't being canceled, but they are continuing to drag his name through the mud, even though he has paid for his crime, and I say crime because of the conviction. Jonathan Majors, just like Rolling Stone brought his name back up today because there is allegedly audio where he says he actually aggressed against his girlfriend. And it was a very misleading headline because they didn't tell you the whole story. They just said, breaking news, Jonathan Majors admits that he aggressed. And then they leave it at that.
And I thought it had something to do with some other woman, some other incident. You know, maybe it's his now girlfriend / fiance. I don't know what the title is, making good. And it had nothing to do with any of that.
Nothing to do with any of that. They're just bringing it back up as if this is a way to remind you or maybe say, hey, he's supposed to be canceled. He's not, though, because he's got a movie coming out, even though it's independent with Magazine Dreams, just like Will Smith had to wait a little bit. Come on back after the grand slapping and rant. Grand slapping, rant, and absolute total disrespect for the moment, going on comedy sketches and rapping and this, that, and the other about the slapping. It's interesting to me that on the same day the Rolling Stone says, hey man, you know what we really need to do? We really need to kick up some dirt on Jonathan Majors.
And there's no need to kick up dirt on someone if they're already canceled, which says to me, they're not already canceled. You know, and I've been long saying that cancel culture does not exist. Now, there might be criticism culture. It might be uncomfortable for an artist, but I can't think of anyone who's completely left public view. I mean, not even, who's the guy?
Kevin Spacey?
No, he's not canceled either. The brothers,
the Tate brothers,
they're not canceled either. Keep on going with it.
Yeah, whoa. Who was canceled?
Alec Baldwin. He's not canceled. Yeah. He's got a damn reality show.
Yeah.
Now,
is Cosby canceled?
He's kind of self-canceled. He's
trying to do a comedy tour. Yeah, but no one. He was trying to do a comedy tour before he was quote unquote canceled and went to prison. I don't know if there's really a market for anyone who's 85, 86 years old in entertainment.
I would love to get the assignment to review that show.
Oh, look, I would be there because he probably doesn't like me anymore. But, you know, that's another story.
That's a whole nother
story. But yeah, I can't really think of anyone who's canceled.
Well, can you please get in touch with Bill Maher and Barry Weiss and let them know this news flash that there's no cancel culture? Because a lot of people spend significant time losing their minds about it.
Yeah, Bill Maher, we had talked about last week. He thought that, cancel culture was just as pervasive as ever. I don't understand that because it's not like he can really point to anything. I think he misconstrues criticism and loss of standing as somehow being canceled. There has never been a time in which you could avoid any type of social consequence.
Well, it's called living in a society, I believe. Is that the technical term?
That's good enough.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. KFI AM 640, live everywhere in the iHeartRadio app.
KFI is literally the KFI of talk radio. KFI.
And KOST HD2.
Los Angeles, Orange County.
Live everywhere.